The metal disc struck the rock hard enough to make my sister flinch. We stood beside Lake Erie at a place our father took us as children. No crowd, no minister. Just Leah, me, and a black urn on a folded towel. When she tilted it toward a keepsake box, something round slipped out and stopped near my boot. The scorched silver disc was the size of a quarter. Stamped into the metal were 3 lines. Samuel Ortega, Case 24-1187. Hale and Sons. My father's name was Frank Mercer. I read the disc again. Leah whispered, "What is that?" I did not answer. She took it from my hand. Her face changed slowly, as if her mind was trying to protect her from understanding the words too quickly. "That isn't Dad." The lake wand lifted ash from the open urn. I closed the lid. Then I called the funeral home. Curtis Hale answered on the second ring. "Hale and Sons Funeral Services. This is Curtis." "This is Daniel Mercer." A pause. Not long. Long enough. "Mr. Mercer, is everything all right? We found a metal identification disc in my father's ashes." Another pause. "What number is on it?" I looked at Leah. She had moved several feet away and was holding the keepsake box against her chest. "It says Samuel Ortega, Case 24-1187. Curtis breathed out. "That sounds like an internal tracking disc." "It has another man's name. Those discs occasionally remain in equipment and can transfer during processing." "Are they reused?" "Not intentionally. That wasn't my question." Curtis lowered his voice. "Mr. Mercer, I understand why this is upsetting. It does not mean the cremated remains are not your father's. How would another man's identification disc get inside my father's urn? There are several possible explanations. Name one that does not involve you giving us the wrong person." He did not answer. I said, "Do not destroy anything." Then I ended the call. "My name is Daniel Mercer. I was 42 when a stranger's name fell from my father's urn. I worked as an HVAC service technician in Cleveland. Most failures announce themselves early. A new noise, a strange smell, a system running too long. People waited until the house turned cold. I understood delayed maintenance. I did not understand delayed grief. My father, Frank Mercer, died at 71 from a heart attack in the parking lot of a hardware store. He had gone in for furnace filters. The receipt was still in his coat pocket when the hospital called my sister. Leah lived 15 minutes from him. I lived almost 3 hours away. That distance was not accidental. My father and I had not spoken properly in nearly 10 years. We had exchanged birthday texts, a Christmas card once, a message after my daughter started college. Nothing that required either of us to admit how we got there. Frank had been a school district maintenance worker who could repair almost anything. Neighbors called him before licensed contractors. He always showed up. That was part of the problem. At 17, I missed a trade school exam because he finished repairing a widow's furnace before coming to my broken car. When my marriage ended, he installed a church ramp instead of helping me move. When my daughter was born, he arrived after driving a former co-worker to dialysis and stayed 20 minutes. Strangers loved his generosity. Family felt unreasonable for wanting more. Our final argument happened after my mother's death. She had been ill for 14 months. Leah handled most appointments. I drove in on weekends. Frank repaired other people's homes and shelter equipment, anything that let him leave the room where my mother was dying. At the funeral, people lined up to tell me what a wonderful man he was. I listened to stories about rides, repairs, borrowed money, and small kindnesses. When the last guest left, I found him stacking chairs. I said, "You always knew how to show up for people who didn't know you well enough to be disappointed." He put down the chair. He did not yell. He said, "You came 3 weekends out of 14 months. I have a job and a family." So did I. "You were her husband. You were her son." We stood in the church basement between folded tables and half-empty coffee cups. I wanted him to apologize for every missed thing at once. He wanted me to understand that he had been afraid. Neither of us said those words. I left. For almost 10 years, we protected our anger by calling it distance. Leah remained near him. She took him to appointments. changed the sheets after his prostate surgery, organized his pills, brought food he claimed not to need. When he died, she called me from the hospital. "Dad's gone," she said. I asked whether she was sure. It was a stupid question. She said yes. Then she listed the hospital release funeral home death certificates bank in Cremation. Leah handled grief like failed equipment. She made a list. I let her. Hale and Sons Funeral Services had operated in Cleveland for 3 generations. Their website showed a brick building with white columns and a family photograph beneath the words, "Dignity through every step." Curtis Hale met us in a small arrangement room 2 days after Frank's death. He was 47 with carefully trimmed gray at his temples and a voice built for speaking to frightened families. He wore a dark suit and no wedding ring. He asked whether we wanted embalming, viewing memorial service newspaper notice prayer cards, flowers, or transportation. Leah said no to most of it. I said we wanted direct cremation. Curtis nodded gently. Many families find simplicity comforting. I did not find it comforting. I found it efficient. There was one point in the process where a family member could visually confirm identity before cremation. Curtis offered it. Leah looked at me. I said no. I don't need one more memory of him looking dead. Leah said, "Maybe I should." I answered too quickly. "You've seen enough." She accepted that. Later, I told myself I was protecting her. The truth was simpler. I did not want to see my father's face after spending 10 years avoiding it while he was alive. The hospital identification and paperwork were enough, Curtis said. Leah signed the release. I paid the invoice. 4 days later, Hale and Sons gave us a sealed black urn, 6 certified death certificates, and a small envelope containing a receipt. No one mentioned another name. At the lake, I photographed the disc before placing it inside a plastic bag. Leah kept asking the same question. "Where is Dad?" I said, "We don't know yet." She looked at the closed urn. "Whose ashes are those?" I had no answer. We drove separately to Hale and Sons. Curtis met us at the side entrance. He did not invite us into the arrangement room. Instead, he led us to a smaller office near the crematory hallway. I placed the bag on his desk. He did not touch it. "That is one of our identification discs," he said. "I know. The number corresponds to a county case." "Who is Samuel Ortega?" Curtis folded his hands. "I cannot discuss another decedent because of privacy requirements. He is inside the urn you gave us." "We do not know that." "The disc has his name. There may have been a transfer during processing." "Explain the process." Curtis glanced at Leah. "The identification disc accompanies the decedent through cremation. Afterward, it is placed with the cremated remains. Then it belongs to Samuel Ortega. It may have entered the processor accidentally. Was Samuel cremated the same day as my father?" Curtis looked at me. "I would have to review the logs." "You already know." His jaw tightened. Leah said, "Please, we just need to know where our father is." Curtis turned toward her. "I understand." "No," she said. "You understand what your insurance company wants you to say." I had never heard Leah speak like that. Curtis leaned back. "There are procedures for this." "What procedures?" I asked. "We can take custody of the urn, perform an internal audit, and provide a written finding." "You're not taking the urn." "Then our ability to investigate is limited." "You have the logs." "We need the disc and remains." "You can photograph the disc." "It may need laboratory inspection." "It's stamped metal?" Leah asked. "Can ashes be tested?" Curtis said DNA testing of cremated remains was generally unreliable. That was one of the few direct answers he gave. He offered to refund the cremation fee immediately. I asked why, as a gesture of concern. "Not an admission." "No, of course not." He opened a folder and removed a one-page form. It stated that the family had reported an identification concern and was returning the urn for administrative review. At the bottom, a paragraph said Hale and Sons did not concede that any transfer or misidentification had occurred. I slid it back. "No, Curtis's voice lost some softness. Mr. Mercer, public accusations before an investigation could cause unnecessary harm. To whom? To employees. Other families. My father is in memory care. This business supports 6 households. My father may be sitting in a county storage room under another man's name. That is speculation. So prove me wrong. We left with the urn. In the parking lot, Leah leaned against her car. I saw something, she said. What? When I signed the release. She stared at the pavement. The hospital number ended in 52. The number on the funeral home form ended in 87. I felt the anger arrive before the meaning. You noticed a different case number? The employee said hospitals and funeral homes use different numbers. Who? A woman at the desk, young, dark hair. Did you ask Curtis? No. Why not? I asked her. You signed anyway. Leah looked up. I had been awake for 30 hours. That is not an answer. It is the answer. You should have told me. You should have come before the paperwork was already on the table. I came as soon as I could. You came after I identified his clothes, cleared his hospital room, called the funeral home, and found the insurance card. You told me you had it handled, because you sounded relieved when I said it. The parking lot went quiet around us. She continued. You got to stay angry at Dad from 300 miles away. I was the one changing his sheets. I said, that does not make the wrong number disappear. No, it explains why I wanted one thing to be simple. She got into her car and drove away. I remained beside mine, holding an urn that might not contain my father. For the first time since Frank died, I stopped feeling only anger at him. There was no room left. The living had filled it. That night I learned the basic cremation chain. A durable metal disc followed one person through the chamber, cooling, processing, and placement into the urn. Metal survived what paper could not. It was not reusable. It was not supposed to wander. At 1:14 in the morning, I found a county document listing unclaimed decedents. Samuel Ortega, 68. Found unresponsive at the St. Benedict Winter Shelter. No known address. No next of kin reached. Released to Hale and Sons under county cremation contract. Case 24-1187. The date of death was the same as my father's. The hospital was the same. Frank died at 4:32 p.m. Samuel died at 5:07. 2 men in the same hospital morgue. Both older. Both approximately 6 feet tall. Both listed with gray facial hair. My father's hospital case ended in 11:52. Samuel's county case ended in 11:87. The numbers Leah remembered. At 7 the next morning, I called the hospital's decedent affairs office. A woman named Margaret Lynn answered. I explained the disc. Her tone became careful. We released Mr. Mercer to a licensed transport agent for Hale and Sons. What time? I cannot provide full records without authorization. I'm his son. You can request the chain of custody log through medical records. How long? 5 to 10 business days. I may have another man's remains. I understand the urgency. No, you understand the phrase urgency. I need the time and the person who signed. Margaret paused. Then she said, submit the request today and mark it identity concern. I will flag it. That was more help than the rules required. I filed the request. Then I called the county medical examiner's office about Samuel. They transferred me twice before a clerk named Russell said the county had arranged cremation after unsuccessful next-of-kin searches. Who searched? I asked. The assigned investigator and contracted locator service. Who did they call? I cannot disclose contact information. Did they contact a daughter named Naomi? Silence. Where did you get that name? I had not. Not yet. I said I'm trying to find his family. Russell told me to submit a written inquiry. More paperwork. More waiting. At work, I misdiagnosed a furnace because I kept staring at my phone. The homeowner said the blower motor sounded wrong. I replaced a capacitor. The motor still failed. My supervisor, Tony Danner, watched me open the panel a second time. You want to go home? No. You've checked the same voltage 3 times. My father died. I know. We may have the wrong ashes. Tony waited. I explained enough. He closed his tool bag. Go. I need the hours. You need not to set somebody's furnace on fire. I went home. Leah had left 2 messages. The first said she was sorry. The second said Curtis had called her. I returned the call. What did he want? He said there was a missing electronic authorization. For what? He called it a digital reconciliation form. Did he send it? Yes. She forwarded the email. The form was dated 3 days after the cremation, but carried a new version number. It stated, family confirms identification was completed through hospital documentation and accepts that internal facility tracking numbers may differ from hospital and county references. There was a signature line for Leah. Curtis's email said the document was routine and should have been included in the original packet. It was not routine. It was written to make the mismatched numbers look expected. Did you sign? I asked. No. Why didn't you tell me when he first sent it? I am telling you now. When did he send it? Yesterday morning, before the disc fell from the urn. Curtis knew there was a problem before I called. I told Leah not to respond. Then I called him. He did not answer. I left one message. You sent my sister a new identification form before we found the disc. Preserve every version and every email. 10 minutes later, his attorney called. That ended our direct conversations. The attorney, Paul Sutter, said Hale and Sons had initiated an internal quality review and asked us to refrain from contacting employees or other families. I asked whether Samuel Ortega had been cremated there. He said he could not discuss another family's matter. Samuel is not another family's matter anymore. That is precisely what remains unestablished. He offered a meeting with counsel. I declined until we had records. That afternoon, Margaret from the hospital called me unofficially. She could not release documents yet, but she said the transport log showed 2 releases to the same driver 4 minutes apart. Frank Mercer at 8:42 p.m., Samuel Ortega at 8:46. The driver signed both on paper because the handheld scanner had malfunctioned. What company? Lakefront Decedent Transport. Licensed? She hesitated. The company had been used before. That wasn't my question. I do not handle licensing. The driver's name was Evan Rusk. I found Lakefront Decedent Transport registered to Carla Venn. The business address was a storefront between a tax office and a closed nail salon. No website. No public phone. I drove there. The door was locked. A handwritten sign said call for removals and listed a number. Carla answered. I said I wanted to speak about 2 hospital releases. She hung up. That confirmed nothing legally. It confirmed plenty emotionally. Leah came to my house that evening. She brought our father's coat in a plastic garment bag. The hospital gave me his things, she said. I never checked all the pockets. She placed the coat on my table. Frank wore the same brown canvas jacket for 15 years. The cuffs were shiny with age. One elbow had a patch he stitched himself. I found furnace filters on the hardware receipt. A peppermint candy, 2 loose screws, a small folding ruler, a card from St. Benedict Winter Shelter. On the back, Frank had written, Boiler Room Thermostat Sticks. Sam O. Ask about Naomi email. Below that was an email address, naomi.ortega.pt@gmail.com. Leah sat down. Do you think he knew Samuel? Yes. How? The shelter. Dad had volunteered there. He never told me. He didn't tell me either. That mattered. Frank had spent years helping people at St. Benedict. Leah, who handled his appointments and laundry, did not know. I almost used that discovery to create a kinder version of him. It did not erase what he avoided at home. I emailed Naomi. Subject: urgent question about Samuel Ortega. The message was difficult to write without sounding like a scam. My name is Daniel Mercer. My father died in Cleveland on the same day as Samuel Ortega. A cremation identification disc with Samuel's name was found in the urn given to my family. I believe the funeral home may have confused their remains. I am sorry to contact you this way. Please call me or the county investigator. She replied within 11 minutes. Who gave you this email? I wrote. My father had it in his coat. He volunteered at St. Benedict. She called immediately. Her first words were not hello. My father is not dead. I looked at Leah. The county record says he died last month. No. He does this. He disappears. Then somebody finds him. I'm sorry. Do not say that. I found his name in my father's urn. Silence. Then, what does that mean? I don't know yet. You scattered him. No. Did you open the urn? Yes. She inhaled sharply. Where is it? With me. You have my father in your house. I may. And now you care because yours is missing. The accusation was true enough. Yes, I said. That is how I found out. She began crying, then stopped herself. I blocked his old number. I did not respond. She continued as if arguing with someone else. He called for money. He would say he needed a motel, then I would learn he was drinking. He missed my mother's funeral. He borrowed from my husband. I have children. You do not have to explain that to me. Then why do I feel like I do? I don't know. Did the shelter call? The county says they tried next of kin. I changed my number 2 years ago. My father wrote your email down. Why? I think Samuel asked him to help. She was quiet. Finally, she said, I'm coming to Cleveland. Naomi arrived the next morning in navy scrubs beneath a winter coat carrying old documents. She did not shake my hand. She stared at the urn, then read Samuel's name on the disc. That is his case number. Yes. I don't know what I expected. Leah offered coffee. Naomi said no. Then she asked, What did your father want with my email? I gave her the shelter card. She recognized the handwriting beneath Frank's. The words Sam O were written by my father. The email was written in a different hand. That's my dad, she said. How can you tell? He makes the O too small. She touched the plastic bag around the card, not the urn. Samuel had been a union carpenter. A back injury led to medication, alcohol, divorce debt, and years of temporary rooms. He was not always homeless, she said. I know. No, people hear shelter and decide they understand the whole person. I let that pass. She opened her folder. Inside were photographs of Samuel at work at Naomi's wedding, holding a baby, and later outside a motel. He could make anything square, Naomi said, except his life. She blocked him after he borrowed $900 and disappeared. Her husband had threatened separation if she kept giving money. I thought one day a hospital would call, she said. I just thought I would answer that one. Leah said, The hospital called me. Naomi looked at her. Leah continued. I almost didn't answer because it was an unknown number. There was no comfort in the comparison, only recognition. Naomi wanted the urn. I said no. Her face hardened. If that is my father, if it is Samuel, you should have him. If it is not giving it to you creates another mistake. You think I am going to steal your father's ashes. I think none of us knows whose ashes they are. She stood. This is your house. Your father got a funeral home, mine got a county number, and now you are still the person deciding what happens. She was right. That did not make giving her the urn safe. I said we asked the state to take custody. Leah agreed. Naomi did not. Then the funeral home attorney sent an offer. Hale and Sons offered refunds, review costs, counseling a new memorial, and $12,000 to each family. In return, we would call it a labeling discrepancy waive claims and remain silent. They had sent Naomi the same offer before she even gave them her address. The county had shared it. Naomi tore her copy in half. Leah did not. She placed hers on the table. We need to think, she said. I looked at her. You cannot be serious. I am not saying sign it. $12,000 to call your father an inconvenience. I said think. What is there to think about? My unpaid leave, Dad's bills, a lawyer we do not have. Naomi said, They are paying you to stop asking. Leah turned. You have known about this for 1 day. I cared for Dad for 2 years, Naomi replied. At least you knew when he died. Each had found the sentence that could hurt the other. I said enough. They both looked at me. Leah laughed bitterly. Of course, Daniel gets to manage the room now. She took her coat and left. Naomi stayed. Not because we had become allies, because neither of us knew where else to go. That afternoon, the State Board of Embalmers and Funeral Directors opened a preliminary complaint. An investigator named Gideon Price called. His voice was dry and unhurried. Do not contact current employees for statements, he said. Why? Because the funeral home will call it intimidation. Can you seize the records? Not on your request. What can you do? Ask questions until someone lies in a document. I almost liked him. Gideon requested the disc urn photographs, emails, and Leah's unsigned form. Both families consented to state custody. When the evidence technician asked me to sign, I read my name twice. My hand shook anyway. Gideon interviewed the Hospital County Funeral Home and Transport Company. He shared little warning that partial findings encouraged families to build conclusions too early. Evidence was not a story until enough of it agreed. That did not make waiting easier. Leah stopped returning my calls. She sent one message. I need 3 days where Dad is not a case number or an argument. I respected 2 days. On the 3rd, I drove to her house. She opened the door wearing sweatpants and one of Frank's old school district sweatshirts. His name was embroidered above the pocket. She did not invite me in. I'm not signing the settlement, she said. I didn't come for that. Then why? Because we're fighting about the wrong thing. You mean I'm fighting wrong? No. She waited. I said I blamed you because you signed the release. You still do. I blamed you because if it was your mistake, then I didn't have to look at mine. Her expression did not soften. What mistake? I made you handle everything. You lived 3 hours away. I could have come earlier. I could have looked at him. I could have read what you signed. Yes, she said. The answer landed because she did not rush to forgive me. I'm sorry. She looked past me toward the street. Dad said that once. When? After he forgot my graduation dinner. He said sorry while changing the oil in my car. That sounds like him. He never stopped working long enough to hear whether I accepted. I nodded. Leah finally stepped aside. Her kitchen table was covered with Frank's papers. Medical statements, pension records, a notebook where she tracked appointments, a grocery list in his handwriting. She had been sorting them alone. I sat down. I found something, she said. From a folder marked Hale, she removed the original hospital release. The decedent name read Frank Mercer. Hospital case 24-1152. Below it, the transport line had been corrected by hand. The original number was still faintly visible beneath white correction tape. 1187. Samuel's case. Did you see this before? I asked. No. The copy they gave me was darker. She handed me the funeral home authorization. Its internal case number was HF-24-1187. Not a new system. Samuel's number had followed the paperwork from the hospital release into Hale and Sons. What number was on the urn receipt? Leah found it. HF-24-1152. The correct number appeared only at the end. Someone changed it after cremation. I photographed everything and sent it to Gideon. He replied, Do not mark or separate originals. I will collect tomorrow, Leah said. I thought I saw 52 at the hospital and 87 later. I kept thinking I imagined it. You didn't. I signed it. You were exhausted. That explains it. It does not undo it. She had heard me use similar language with Sophie in another life I did not have. I said, no, it doesn't. We sorted records until midnight. It was the first time Leah and I had spent more than an hour alone in years. Not because of one argument. Because after our mother died, we inherited different versions of responsibility. Leah remained. I left. She viewed my distance as freedom. I viewed her closeness as moral authority. Neither of us admitted the cost of our own choice. The next day, Gideon collected the documents and told us the state had found a discrepancy in the cremation metal recovery log. After cremation, non-combustible metal remained. Surgical screws, joint replacements, dental material. The crematory recorded and separated larger pieces before final processing. Frank had received a right hip replacement 7 years earlier. His medical records listed a titanium stem and cobalt chromium head. The cremation log under Frank's name recorded, no large orthopedic metal recovered. The log under Samuel's name recorded, right hip component bagged with remains. Samuel had never undergone hip replacement. Naomi confirmed that. My father's implant had followed the wrong name. That was the first evidence strong enough to feel like an answer. The urn given to us was almost certainly Samuel. The remains stored by the county under Samuel Ortega were almost certainly Frank. Gideon refused to say certainly until the full chain was verified. Naomi sat in my kitchen when he told us. She looked at the empty place where the urn had been. So we had him. Yes, I said. And now the state has him. Yes. Your father is in county storage. Probably. She laughed once without humor. Your family got my father. The county got yours. Everybody got treated according to the wrong paperwork. I said, we can fix it. She turned on me. You keep saying that like it is a furnace. I know it isn't. Do you? No. That answer stopped the argument. St. Benedict Winter Shelter occupied an old church building on the west side. The brick exterior was stained by decades of traffic. A boiler vent rattled above the basement windows. Frank's note mentioned the thermostat. Naomi and I went there together. Leah declined. She said she was not ready to learn another part of our father's life from strangers. The shelter director, Ruth Weller, recognized Frank's photograph immediately. He kept this place alive, she said. Did he work here? Volunteer, mostly repairs. How long? About 6 years. He had been coming during the same years he did not call me. Ruth led us to the basement. The boiler room smelled like dust metal and overheated paint. Frank had labeled valves with blue tape. His handwriting covered service dates. He had installed a used circulation pump and rebuilt the control relay twice. The thermostat still stuck. He was supposed to come back, Ruth said. Naomi stood near a workbench. Did he know Samuel? Very well. Ruth's expression became cautious. Are you family? I'm his daughter. Ruth touched Naomi's arm, then withdrew before the gesture became possession. I'm sorry. Did you call me? We called every number Samuel gave us. I changed mine. He had an email written on a card. My email? I think Frank helped him write it down. Did he send anything? Ruth opened a file cabinet. Samuel's shelter file included intake forms, medication lists, incident notes, and 3 unsent emails. Samuel changed his mind each time. One draft said, Naomi, I am not asking for money. Frank says to write that first because you will stop reading otherwise. The message ended there. Another, I heard Mateo made varsity. I found the article online. Tell him his grandfather knew how to build a better locker than the school has. No send. The last, I am trying to get into the apartment program. I walked out last time because they treated me like a child. I know that is not the same as being treated badly. No send. Naomi read them standing beside a copier. Her face remained still until the third. Then she sat down. Why didn't he send them? Ruth said, pride, fear, some days sobriety, some days not. Did Frank push him? Frank pushed everybody while pretending he wasn't. That sounded like my father. Ruth explained that Frank and Samuel connected over tools. Samuel repaired cabinet doors. Frank fixed plumbing. They argued over whether old buildings deserved to survive poor maintenance. Samuel called Frank Schoolhouse. Frank called Samuel Square. Because he was a carpenter, I asked. Because he insisted every story had one correct angle. Naomi wiped her face. Did my father talk about me? Yes. What did he say? That you were smart enough to stop believing him. The answer hurt her. Ruth did not soften it. He also kept every photograph you sent before you stopped. Naomi looked away. I asked whether Frank talked about me. Ruth smiled sadly. He said his son repaired heating systems and had no patience for people who ignored warning signs. That's all. He said you had become the kind of man who would tell him exactly where he failed. He already knew. Knowing and hearing are different. I did not respond. Ruth gave us copies of the contact records after Naomi signed a release. Before we left, she showed us a small locker containing Samuel's property, a carpenter pencil, reading glasses, a leather belt, 2 photographs, a union card, a motel key. The county had collected the larger bag, but these remained after his last stay. Naomi picked up the union card. His name was embossed clearly, Samuel J. Ortega, a name the system later called Unclaimed. That word became more offensive the longer I thought about it. Unclaimed sounded like abandoned luggage. It erased the difference between no family and family who could not be reached, would not answer, or did not know how to return. Naomi said I did not claim him. Ruth replied, you did not know he needed claiming. I knew he needed something. Those are not the same. Naomi looked at me. Neither of us deserved easy relief. We received the transport records 3 days later. Lakefront's GPS showed the driver leaving the hospital at 8:51 p.m. Hale and Sons was 22 minutes away. The vehicle arrived at 9:36. 45 minutes later, the route included a 12-minute stop behind a gas station. The driver, Evan Rusk, told Gideon he had become nauseated and pulled over. The handwritten transport forms reversed 2 seal numbers that differed by 1 digit. At Hale and Sons, the receiving order and cremation schedule also conflicted. The hospital scanner was dead. The funeral home scanner was being replaced. Paper moved where digital controls failed and memory replaced verification. The first mistake may have been 1 digit. The cover-up required more. Gideon found the person Leah remembered. Maya Benson, 29. Licensed crematory operator. Her mother, Denise, worked the reception desk at Hale and Sons. Maya initially denied seeing any mismatch. Then Curtis's attorney sent the board a response blaming operator-level documentation failure. Maya changed counsel. 2 days later, she contacted Gideon. She had photographed the original metal recovery log on her phone because she used the image to complete end-of-day records. The photograph showed Frank's line with the hip implant notation. The official log later showed the notation under Samuel. Someone had moved the entry. Maya admitted she retyped the log at Curtis's direction. He told her the receiving order had been corrected, and the digital system needed alignment. Did you know remains may have been switched? Gideon asked during a recorded interview we later heard at the hearing. I knew the metal did not match the medical sheet. Why did you change it? Curtis said the hospital history was incomplete. Did you believe him? For about 10 minutes. Why didn't you report it? My mother's insurance came through the funeral home. My younger brother was on it. Curtis said if the county contract was suspended, all of us would be laid off. Did you understand changing the log was false? Yes. Why keep the photograph? Maya answered, because I was afraid he would say I did it alone. She was not a whistleblower arriving from pure courage. She was a frightened employee keeping a receipt for her own survival. That made her testimony stronger, not weaker. Curtis requested a private meeting before the formal hearing. Our new attorney, Marissa Cole, advised us to attend. Naomi brought her own counsel. Leah came with me. We sat across from Curtis and Paul Sutter in the same arrangement room where we had selected direct cremation. Curtis looked older. His suit was still precise. His eyes were not. He said the funeral home had served Cleveland families for 78 years. His grandfather opened it. His father expanded it. Curtis took over when his father developed Alzheimer's. The county contract kept the crematory operating during a bad financial year. We made a receiving error, he said. You made a lot of errors, Naomi replied. I am not minimizing that. You called my father an internal discrepancy. I am trying to explain. I said explain when you knew. Curtis looked at his attorney. Paul said he could discuss settlement without admitting liability. I almost left. Leah touched my arm. Curtis continued. He learned there was a possible mismatch after Maya reported the implant problem. That was the morning after both cremations, before our urn was released. What did you do? I asked. I reviewed the paperwork. And the identifiers conflicted. So you stopped release? No. Naomi leaned forward. Why, Curtis said he believed the remains could still be associated by processing order. The probability favored correct return. What probability, I asked. He did not answer with a number. He said county cases often arrived with incomplete histories. He said delaying the family release would require reporting a potential chain failure. The board could suspend operations. The county would remove its contract. The funeral home already owed the bank. His father's memory care facility cost $9,000 a month. 6 employees depended on the business. I listened, then asked, why send Leah a new form? To clarify numbering. Why tell us discs might be reused? To prevent panic before review. You knew there was a chance my father was not in that urn. Yes. The word entered the room quietly. Leah closed her eyes. Naomi said, you knew Samuel's family had not been found. That made him easier. Curtis looked at her. No. You thought nobody would compare. I thought reporting uncertainty would create 2 families without answers. You already had that. I was trying to prevent 2 families from losing everything twice. I said, you were protecting the business from the moment the truth became expensive. Curtis offered new terms. Full reimbursement, $40,000 to each family, independent memorial services, written apology, cooperation in identifying remains, confidentiality limited to settlement amounts not facts. Leah stared at the figure. Naomi did not. She said, my father was worth the truth before you knew I existed. Curtis answered, I agree. No, you agree now. We left without signing. In the parking lot, Leah said she wanted to accept if the facts could remain public. I turned too quickly. After all this, I am not selling Dad. Then why? Because I missed work. Because I used savings for his care. Because grief does not pay the mortgage. Naomi said nothing. I said, it makes them think money fixes it. Leah's face hardened. You still get to make this about your principles because you were not the one paying Dad's pharmacy co-pays. That isn't fair. It is accurate. I wanted to tell her $40,000 came with a price. She already knew. She simply had bills, too. We agreed not to decide before the hearing. For once, agreement meant admitting none of us held the clean answer. The hearing took place 6 weeks after the disc fell beside my boot. The Ohio Board of Embalmers and Funeral Directors met in a government conference room with fluorescent lighting and carpet the color of old oatmeal. There was no jury or audience. Only board members, lawyers, investigators, witnesses, and 2 families trying to recover names from numbers. Curtis sat at one table with Paul Sutter. Maya and her attorney sat behind them. Carla Venn represented Lakefront Decedent Transport. The hospital sent its compliance officer. The county sent an assistant administrator who kept referring to Samuel as the decedent. Naomi corrected him the 3rd time. His name was Samuel. The administrator apologized, then used the decedent again 10 minutes later. Gideon presented the chain in order. Frank Mercer entered the hospital morgue under Case 24-1152. Samuel Ortega entered under Case 24-1187. Their body bag seal numbers differed by 1 digit. The hospital scanner had failed. The same lakefront driver signed both releases 4 minutes apart. The paper transport sheet reversed the seals. At Hale & Sons, no receiving scan occurred because the new system had not been installed. The handwritten log placed Samuel first. The cremation schedule placed Frank first. The discs followed the case files, not independently verified bodies. The first board member asked Carla why Lakefront employed a driver whose individual removal permit had expired. Carla said the company license covered him during renewal. It did not. She admitted she knew the renewal was delayed. Why let him transport remains? The board member asked. Because Hale had 2 removals and no one else was available. Was cost a factor? Yes. How much did you charge per removal? Carla named a rate low enough to explain why Hale used them. The board member said, "You made dignity dependent on staffing." Carla replied, "Every service is dependent on staffing." It was defensive. It was also true. The problem was what she had done after recognizing the staffing was insufficient. Evan Rusk testified by video. He admitted stopping behind the gas station because he vomited. He said the paper forms slid from the passenger seat to the floor. He placed them back without checking which was which. He did not open the body bags. He did not change the wrist identifiers. He believed Hale's receiving staff would verify them. Hale believed the hospital and transporter had verified them. The hospital believed the transport signatures preserved the chain. Each person trusted the next point because the previous point was inconvenient to revisit. Then Maya testified. She described loading the first cremation under Frank's case number. The body inside had a paper toe tag, but the ink had smeared. The metal disc came from the file packet. She checked the name against the schedule. Not the body. After processing, she found no hip implant. The next case, Samuel produced a large hip component. She reported it to Curtis. He told her the medical histories were reversed. "Did you request hospital confirmation?" Gideon asked. "No." "Why not?" "Curtis said he would." "Did he?" "I don't know." Curtis's attorney objected to speculation. The board chair sustained it. Maya continued. The original metal recovery log placed the implant beside Frank's name because that was the medical record she had. Curtis later told her to place it beside Samuel. He said the receiving order had been corrected. She changed the log. "Why photograph it first?" "I photographed all handwritten logs before retyping." "Why keep that photograph after the official log changed?" Maya looked at Curtis. "Because I knew one day somebody would ask who changed it." Curtis did not look back. The hospital compliance officer confirmed Frank's hip replacement. Naomi provided Samuel's medical history from old union insurance records and hospital releases. No hip replacement. The state's contracted crematory examiner testified that the hip component stored with the county urn carried a manufacturer code matching Frank's surgical record. The county urn, labeled Samuel Ortega, contained Frank Mercer. The urn Hale and Sons gave my family contained Samuel Ortega. Not maybe. Not probable. The names had been reversed. Leah pressed both hands to her mouth. Naomi closed her eyes. I had expected certainty to feel like relief. It felt like the moment after a furnace stops making noise and you realize the house is getting colder. The board then reviewed the new form Curtis sent Leah. Metadata showed it was created the morning after Maya reported the implant discrepancy. Before our family received the urn, Curtis knew. An internal email appeared on the screen. From Curtis Hale to Maya Benson. Denise Benson. Subject Mercer/county file. Align the metal log with final tracking numbers. If Mercer family asks about disk explain internal reuse possibility. Do not create written incident until I complete review. Maya's mother, Denise, had forwarded the email to her personal account. She said she did it because the wording frightened her. The board chair asked Curtis to explain. His attorney advised him not to answer questions that could affect a criminal investigation. Curtis still spoke. "I did not intend to deceive either family permanently." Naomi said, "How long were you planning to deceive us temporarily?" The chair told her not to interrupt. Curtis continued. He wanted 48 hours to reconstruct the chain. The county planned to collect Samuel's urn. The Mercer family expected Frank's. If he stopped both releases, 2 families would be told that the funeral home could not identify their remains. He believed the implant discrepancy might be a medical record error. "Did you contact the hospital?" the chair asked. "No." "Did you stop the release?" "No." "Did you file the mandatory incident report?" "No." "Did you create a new family form intended to normalize the conflicting numbers?" Curtis looked down. "Yes." Did you instruct staff to describe identification discs as potentially reused? Yes. Are they reused? No. The chair paused. What were you protecting? Curtis answered, the families from uncertainty. The board member beside her said, your email mentions no family. It mentions no written incident until you completed review. Curtis's face tightened. He said the funeral home had survived the pandemic staffing losses, rising crematory fuel costs, and his father's illness. He feared one report would end a 78-year business. It did, not because a report existed, because he chose not to make it. The hospital received a formal deficiency for its failed backup process. Lakefront lost its operating authority and later closed. Carla sold her van and filed bankruptcy. The driver surrendered his removal credential. Hale and Sons lost the county contract immediately. The board suspended Curtis's license pending final disciplinary action and referred the altered records to the county prosecutor. Maya received a formal reprimand, 6 months of supervised practice, and additional chain of custody training. She kept her license because she cooperated and preserved the original record. Her mother lost her job when the funeral home closed. 4 other employees did too. That mattered. Consequences do not sort themselves neatly between guilty and innocent. The building was sold to a regional company, and the Hale name came down. Curtis moved his father to a less expensive care facility. The board ordered the state to return the remains after final verification. Naomi received Samuel's urn in a plain wooden container. Leah and I received Frank's. No additional fee, no ceremony. A state technician read each name aloud, case number, implant, record, and seal number. We signed separately. I read Frank's name twice. Leah watched me. Neither of us commented. The civil settlements came later. All 3 of us accepted compensation without confidentiality about the facts. Naomi funded a small identification clinic at St. Benedict. Leah paid medical debt from our father's illness. I covered my daughter's final college year. None of us became rich. Samuel's memorial took place in his old union carpentry shop. People told stories that did not clean him up. Naomi said her father had hurt people and loved people often in the same year. She did not know whether she forgave him. She knew he deserved to be named. Frank's memorial took place in the gym of the middle school where he had worked longest. The principal unlocked the building on a Saturday. Former teachers and custodians came. Someone brought a box of screws Frank had organized by size. The shelter sent 3 residents. Ruth Weller spoke briefly. She said Frank repaired the St. Benedict boiler but never repaired the thermostat because he kept saying he needed the correct part. That was Frank, I said quietly. Always waiting for the correct part. Leah heard me. After the guests left, she handed me a folded piece of paper found in Frank's coat lining. I had missed it the first time. The paper said, call Daniel. Don't explain everything. Just start. No date. No completed call. No apology. Just an instruction my father wrote to himself and did not follow. I sat on the bottom row of the bleachers. For 10 years, part of me had wanted proof that Frank understood what he did. The note gave me that. It did not give me the conversation. Knowing he intended to call did not equal being called. Leah sat beside me. He asked me for your number 2 months ago, she said. He had my number. I know. But what did you say? I gave it to him again. Why didn't you tell me? Because he asked me not to. I laughed bitterly. Everyone protected his delay. I thought he would call. So did he. Leah looked across the empty gym. I was angry at you for leaving me with him. I know. I was angry at him for needing me. I know. I was angry when he died because I felt relieved. I turned toward her. She continued. For 3 seconds before the guilt started, I knew there would be no more appointments. I had no useful answer, so I said, that makes sense. She began crying. Not because I forgave her, because I did not tell her the feeling made her a bad daughter. We sat there until the custodian needed to lock the building. Leah and I did not become close immediately. We argued about the house, tools, medical papers, whether to keep Frank's old truck. The urn remained with Leah because she had cared for him, and I was finally learning that fairness did not always mean splitting every object equally. We placed a small amount of ash beside our mother's grave. The rest went to the school garden, and St. Benedict, two places where Frank had spent more time than he spent explaining himself. Naomi scattered part of Samuel's ash near the Union Hall. She kept the rest. She told me she was not ready to decide. We spoke occasionally as two people who understood the weight of an unknown number appearing on a phone. Months after the hearing, St. Benedict called me. Their boiler room fan had begun vibrating. Ruth said Frank promised to replace the motor. I drove there on a Saturday. The motor bearings were worn. The replacement Frank ordered still sat in a box beneath the workbench. Correct part. Already there. He had not returned to install it. I removed the old motor, cleaned the housing, and wired the new one. Naomi arrived while I worked. She carried a small brass plaque. Samuel J. Ortega, carpenter, father friend. 1946 to 2024. She planned to mount it near the shelter's memorial shelf. You included friend, I said. He had some. I didn't mean he didn't. I know. She sat at the workbench while I finished. We did not discuss forgiveness, or whether our fathers had deserved more chances, or whether children were obligated to answer every call. Those questions had already taken enough space. When the fan started, the vibration disappeared. Warm air moved through the basement vent. I filled out the maintenance sheet. Equipment, part number, date, technician. At the top was a line marked Facility Contact, Ruth Weller. Below it, I wrote the name again because the first letter looked unclear. Naomi watched. You always write names twice. Now I do. I used to think the worst thing Hale and Sons had taken was my father's name. The funeral home had also shown me how easily grief becomes paperwork when nobody wants to look long enough. A hospital trusted a transporter. A transporter trusted a funeral home. A funeral home trusted a schedule. My sister trusted an employee because she was exhausted. I trusted my sister because I did not want to see my father. Naomi ignored unknown calls because she had spent years protecting her family from promises Samuel did not keep. None of those choices were equal. They still met in the same chain. The error took 4 minutes. The lie lasted because everyone decided uncertainty belonged elsewhere. Before I left St. Benedict, I checked the maintenance sheet one final time. Ruth Weller, Samuel Ortega, Daniel Mercer. 3 names, all correct. Then I signed.